When he finally reached home, his mother was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Daniel dropped his school bag near the table and remembered the note. He carefully unfolded it. At first he smiled. Then his expression changed. He read the first few lines again. And again. His mother noticed the look on his face. "Daniel, what happened?" He didn't answer. He simply handed her the paper. His mother began reading. Within seconds, her eyes widened. "What is this?" she whispered. Daniel looked at her. "I don't know, Mom." The note contained information that Daniel had never expected to receive from a stranger. It mentioned his kindness, his future, and an opportunity that could completely change his family's circumstances. But there was something else. A name was written near the bottom of the page. Daniel recognized the name immediately. It belonged to someone he had heard about many times before. Someone connected to a company that offered scholarships and opportunities to talented young people. Daniel looked at his mother in disbelief. "Mom, why would she give this to me?" His mother didn't know the answer. Neither did Daniel. But then they noticed a phone number written beneath the name. His mother hesitated before saying, "Maybe you should call." Daniel stared at the number. One part of him wanted to call immediately. Another part was afraid. What if it was a mistake? What if the woman had given the note to the wrong person? What if the opportunity was not what it seemed? And most importantly, why had Emily been watching him so carefully on that bus? Daniel picked up his phone and prepared to dial. But before he could press the call button, another message appeared on the screen. It was from an unknown number. The message contained only one sentence. "Daniel, before you call that number, there is something you need to know about the woman who gave you the note." Daniel's heart began to race. He stared at the screen. Then another message arrived. And this time the words left him completely speechless. What if the one person you thought would never discover your secret was actually the person who would teach you the biggest lesson of your life? In a quiet African village where everyone knew everyone, a young man named Kofi thought he had found the perfect way to make quick money. He had no idea that his little deception would soon become the story people told for years. Kofi was clever, confident, and always looking for an easy way to get what he wanted. He could talk his way out of almost anything, and because he had a charming smile, many people trusted him without asking too many questions. But there was one thing Kofi wanted badly: a new mobile phone. His old phone had stopped working properly, and every time he saw the young men in the village using expensive smartphones, he felt jealous. The problem was simple. Kofi had no money. Instead of working hard and saving for a phone, he began thinking of another way. One afternoon, while walking through the village market, he noticed an old woman named Mama Amma sitting beside her small stall. She was respected by everyone in the community. She was hardworking, kind, and always ready to help anyone who came to her. Mama Amma had lived alone for many years, but she was not bitter about life. Every morning, she woke before sunrise, prepared food, and sold what she could at the market. People trusted her because she believed that honesty was more valuable than money. Kofi knew all of this. And yet, that afternoon he decided to take advantage of her kindness. He approached her with something wrapped carefully in a cloth. From the way he carried it, Mama Amma assumed it was something valuable. Kofi lowered his voice and told her that he had a special phone he needed to sell quickly. He claimed that he was in urgent need of money and that she was the only person he trusted enough to make the deal with. Mama Amma looked at him suspiciously. "A phone?" she asked. Kofi nodded confidently. "Yes, Mama. A very good phone. I cannot show it to everyone because I don't want people to know I am selling it." The old woman hesitated. She had known Kofi since he was a child, and although she knew he could sometimes be mischievous, she never imagined he would deliberately deceive her. She finally agreed to see what he had brought. Kofi handed her the wrapped object. But there was something very strange about it. Mama Amma touched the package and noticed that it felt nothing like a phone. It was heavy, soft in some places, and completely different from what she expected. Still, Kofi kept talking, distracting her with stories about how expensive the phone was and how quickly she could resell it. She trusted him. Or at least, she wanted to believe him. After giving Kofi the money, Mama Amma carefully carried the package home. Kofi, meanwhile, walked away with a smile on his face, already imagining the new phone he would buy. He thought he had succeeded. He thought Mama Amma would never discover what he had done. But when she reached home and opened the package, she froze. There was no phone inside. Instead, she found something completely unexpected, something that made her stare at the package for several seconds without saying a word. Kofi had deceived the wrong person. What happened next was so unexpected that even the people who later heard the story could hardly believe it. Mama Amma did not scream. She did not immediately run after Kofi. Instead, she calmly picked up what he had given her and made a decision that would leave the young man speechless. By the time Kofi returned to the village with his new phone, he was laughing and celebrating his cleverness. But then he saw Mama Amma standing outside her house. And in her hands was the very thing he had sold her. Kofi's smile disappeared. Mama Amma looked at him and simply said, "My son, come here. I want you to help me with something." Kofi slowly walked toward her, unaware that his own trick was about to turn into a lesson he would never forget. And what Mama Amma asked him to do next would make the entire village talk. The bus was already crowded when the young black teenager stepped inside, holding tightly to the strap above his head as the vehicle moved through the busy city streets. People were tired, phones were ringing, conversations filled the air, and almost every seat was taken. He had spent a long day at school and all he wanted was to sit down, put on his headphones and make it home before dinner. Then he noticed her. A pregnant white woman had just entered the bus. She stood near the door, one hand holding the rail and the other resting gently on her stomach. She looked exhausted. She glanced around the bus, hoping someone would offer her a seat, but nobody moved. The teenager looked at his own seat. Then he looked at the woman. Without saying much, he stood up. "Ma'am, you can sit here," he said. The woman looked surprised. "Are you sure?" she asked. He smiled and nodded. "Yes, please." She slowly walked over and sat down. The teenager remained standing as the bus continued down the road. To everyone else it looked like a small act of kindness. For the young man it was simply the right thing to do. He had no idea that giving up that seat would change the direction of his life. The teenager's name was Daniel. He was 16 years old and lived with his mother and younger sister. His family did not have much money, but his mother had always taught him something he never forgot. Character was worth more than anything money could buy. "Always help people when you can," she often told him. "You never know what someone else is carrying inside." Daniel remembered those words that afternoon. He had no idea that the woman sitting in his seat was carrying more than exhaustion. Her name was Emily. She kept looking at Daniel as if she wanted to say something, but she seemed unsure how to begin. Several stops passed. Daniel stood quietly, holding the rail while looking out the window. Finally, Emily spoke. "What's your name?" "Daniel." "Daniel, thank you." "You're welcome." She smiled, but there was something unusual in her expression. It was almost as if she was trying to remember something. Daniel did not think much of it. He had no reason to. He simply continued his journey. But when the bus reached Emily's stop, something unexpected happened. She stood up carefully, reached into her handbag and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. She handed it to Daniel. "This is for you," she said. Daniel looked confused. "For me?" "Yes. But don't open it until you get home." Daniel almost laughed. He thought perhaps she had written a simple thank you message. He accepted the note and placed it in his school bag. Emily stepped off the bus. Before the doors closed, she turned around and looked at him one more time. Daniel waved. Then the bus moved on. For the rest of the ride, Daniel kept thinking about the note. Why had a stranger given him a handwritten message? What could possibly be inside? When he finally reached home, his mother was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Daniel dropped his school bag near the table and remembered the note. He carefully unfolded it. At first he smiled. Then his expression changed. He read the first few lines again. And again. His mother noticed the look on his face. "Daniel, what happened?" He didn't answer. He simply handed her the paper. His mother began reading. Within seconds, her eyes widened. "What is this?" she whispered. Daniel looked at her. "I don't know, Mom." The note contained information that Daniel had never expected to receive from a stranger. It mentioned his kindness, his future, and an opportunity that could completely change his family's circumstances. But there was something else. A name was written near the bottom of the page. Daniel recognized the name immediately. It belonged to someone he had heard about many times before. Someone connected to a company that offered scholarships and opportunities to talented young people. Daniel looked at his mother in disbelief. "Mom, why would she give this to me?" His mother didn't know the answer. Neither did Daniel. But then they noticed a phone number written beneath the name. His mother hesitated before saying, "Maybe you should call." Daniel stared at the number. One part of him wanted to call immediately. Another part was afraid. What if it was a mistake? What if the woman had given the note to the wrong person? What if the opportunity was not what it seemed? And most importantly, why had Emily been watching him so carefully on that bus? Daniel picked up his phone and prepared to dial. But before he could press the call button, another message appeared on the screen. It was from an unknown number. The message contained only one sentence. Daniel, before you call that number, there is something you need to know about the woman who gave you the note. Daniel's heart began to race. He stared at the screen. Then another message arrived. And this time the words left him completely speechless. Daniel stared at the message on his phone, unable to understand what he was reading. His mother stood beside him, waiting for him to explain. Who sent that? She asked. I don't know. Daniel showed her the screen. His mother read the message twice, then looked at her son. Don't reply yet. Daniel nodded. The two of them sat quietly at the kitchen table. The warm smell of dinner filled the small room, but neither of them was thinking about food anymore. A few minutes earlier, Daniel had been worried about homework and getting enough sleep. Now he was holding a note from a stranger and receiving mysterious messages from an unknown number. His mother finally picked up the handwritten note again. Read this part, she said. Daniel leaned closer. The note explained that Emily had noticed something special about him. She had seen the way he gave up his seat without being asked. She had also noticed that Daniel did not expect money, praise, or attention in return. But the final paragraph was what confused him most. Emily had written that Daniel's kindness reminded her of someone from her own past. Someone she had not seen in many years. Daniel looked at his mother. Who could she mean? I don't know, his mother replied. But perhaps there is more to this than the bus. Daniel picked up his phone again. The unknown number had not sent another message. His mother advised him to wait until they understood what was happening. Daniel agreed, but curiosity kept bothering him. Meanwhile, several miles away, Emily was sitting in a quiet hospital room. She had just finished a routine appointment and was looking through an old photograph on her phone. The photograph showed a much younger woman standing beside a man outside a small community center. The man was smiling. Emily touched the screen gently. After all these years, she whispered. She had never expected to see someone like Daniel on that bus. The teenager's face, his calm behavior, and especially the way he had offered his seat had brought back memories she had tried to put away for years. But there was one detail about Daniel that had caught her attention. His surname. When Daniel had introduced himself on the bus, Emily had noticed the name printed on a school identification card hanging from his backpack. She knew that surname. She had not heard it in a very long time. That was why she had written the note. But Emily had not told Daniel the entire truth. Not yet. Back at Daniel's home, his mother was becoming increasingly concerned. She wanted to protect her son, but she also knew that sometimes an unexpected opportunity could come from the most ordinary moment. Tomorrow, she said, we can try to find out who this woman is. Daniel nodded. But Mom, what if she really wants to help me? Then we will thank her. But we will also make sure everything is safe and clear. Daniel agreed. The next morning he went to school as usual, but he could not concentrate. His teacher noticed. Daniel, are you all right? Yes, sir. You seem distracted. Daniel smiled politely. I didn't sleep very well. He decided not to tell anyone about the note. During lunch, his best friend Marcus noticed that Daniel kept checking his phone. What's going on? Nothing. Marcus laughed. You've checked that phone about 20 times. Daniel finally told him about the woman on the bus, the note, and the strange message. Marcus listened carefully. That sounds serious. I know. Did you call the number? No. Good. Don't rush. Daniel nodded. Then his phone vibrated. Both boys looked at the screen. It was another message from the same unknown number. This time there was no warning. There was a photograph. Daniel opened it. His face immediately became serious. The photograph showed the same community center from Emily's old picture. But there was something else in the image. Standing outside the building was a man Daniel recognized. It was his father. Daniel's father had been absent from his life for many years. He rarely spoke about him, and his mother avoided the subject whenever possible. Daniel knew only that his father had left when he was very young. Marcus, Daniel whispered, that's my dad. Marcus stared at the photograph. How do you know? I've seen old pictures of him. Daniel's hands began to shake slightly. Why would a stranger send him a picture of his father? And how did Emily know anything about his family? There were suddenly too many questions. When Daniel returned home that afternoon, he showed his mother the photograph. The moment she saw it, she became silent. Daniel had never seen that expression on her face before. Mom? She sat down slowly. Where did you get this? Someone sent it to me. Who? I don't know. His mother looked at the photograph again. Then she closed her eyes. For several seconds she said nothing. Daniel sat across from her. You know something. His mother looked at him. There are things about your father that I never wanted you to carry. Daniel's heart sank. What things? She hesitated. Before she could answer, someone knocked on the front door. Both of them turned toward the sound. Another knock followed. Daniel's mother stood up. Stay here. She walked slowly toward the door. Daniel remained seated, watching her. When she opened it, nobody was standing outside. There was only a small envelope on the doorstep. His mother's face changed when she saw the handwriting. She picked it up with trembling hands. Daniel immediately stood. Mom, what's inside? She didn't answer. She opened the envelope. Inside was another photograph. And beneath it was a short handwritten message. Daniel watched his mother read it. Then she looked at him with tears in her eyes. Daniel, she said quietly, I think the woman on the bus didn't choose your seat by accident. Daniel stepped closer. What do you mean? His mother looked down at the photograph. I think she has been looking for you. Daniel's heart began to pound. But before he could ask another question, his phone rang. The caller's name was hidden. Daniel stared at the screen. His mother whispered, Don't answer. But the phone kept ringing. And somewhere on the other side of that call was a person who knew the truth about Daniel's family, something his mother had kept hidden for years. The phone continued ringing on the kitchen table. Daniel stared at the screen while his mother stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the unknown number. Don't answer it, she repeated. Daniel swallowed hard. But what if they know something about Dad? His mother didn't respond. The phone finally stopped. For a few seconds the house was completely silent. Then a message appeared. Daniel picked up the phone before his mother could stop him. It said, Your mother deserves to know that Emily is not your enemy. But she also deserves to know why Emily found you. Daniel read it twice. His mother took the phone from his hand. Whoever is sending these messages knows too much. Then we need to find out who they are, Daniel said. His mother looked toward the envelope lying on the table. Inside was the photograph of Daniel's father standing outside the community center many years ago. On the back of the photograph was a date and a name. Daniel's father had worked at that community center when he was younger. He had helped organize programs for children, tutoring sessions, and local charity events. According to Daniel's mother, he had always wanted to build a better future for other families. But why did he leave us? Daniel asked. His mother looked away. That is the part one never knew how to explain. Daniel felt frustrated. For years, he had accepted that his father was simply gone. He had learned not to ask too many questions because every time he did, his mother became uncomfortable. But now everything was changing. The woman on the bus knew his surname. She had a photograph connected to his father. Someone unknown was sending private messages. And somewhere in the middle of all of it was a life-changing opportunity that Daniel still didn't understand. The following morning, Daniel's mother called Emily. She had found the number written on the note. The call lasted only a few minutes. Emily apologized for frightening them and explained that she never intended to cause trouble. She told Daniel's mother that she had known his father many years ago through the community center. But she still refused to explain everything over the phone. I think Daniel deserves to hear the truth, Emily said. Daniel's mother was quiet. So tell me, she replied. Emily hesitated. There are some things I need to show you first. That answer only made Daniel more curious. Later that day, Emily invited them to meet at a public cafe. Daniel's mother agreed, but she told Daniel they would leave immediately if anything felt uncomfortable. When they arrived, Emily was already waiting. She looked nervous. The pregnant woman Daniel had helped on the bus no longer seemed like a stranger. She looked like someone carrying a story that had been waiting years to be told. Daniel sat across from her. Emily smiled gently. Daniel, thank you for coming. Daniel nodded. I have a lot of questions. I know. Why did you give me that note? Emily looked down at her hands. Because when I saw you give up your seat, something about you reminded me of your father. Daniel's expression changed. You knew my dad? Yes. How? Emily explained that she and Daniel's father had worked on a community education project many years earlier. They had helped young students who needed school supplies, tutoring, and encouragement. Daniel listened carefully. He was a good man, Emily said. Daniel looked at his mother. She remained silent. But then something happened, Emily continued. Your father had to leave the project suddenly. Why? Emily paused. That is a question your mother may be able to answer better than I can. Daniel's frustration grew. Everyone keeps saying there is something I don't know. His mother reached for his hand. Daniel, I wanted to protect you. From what? She sighed. From disappointment. Emily then placed a folder on the table. Inside were documents about an educational foundation connected to the community center. The foundation had recently created a scholarship program for students who demonstrated strong character, leadership, and community spirit. Daniel looked surprised. You want to give me a scholarship? Emily shook her head. I don't decide who receives it. I can recommend you. Daniel stared at the folder. This is because I gave you my seat? No, Emily said. The seat made me notice you. But the opportunity is based on who you are. She explained that she had watched Daniel for only a few minutes on the bus, yet his simple kindness reminded her of the values the foundation had been created to support. Daniel felt overwhelmed. He had never imagined that a small act of kindness could lead to something like this. But there was still one question he couldn't ignore. What does my father have to do with the scholarship? Emily became quiet. Daniel's mother looked uncomfortable. Finally, Emily said, Your father was one of the people who helped create the original program. Daniel stared at her. His father had been connected to the foundation. That meant the opportunity was not completely random. But Emily quickly added, I don't want you to think this is being offered because of your father. Your father may have helped start something, but you must earn your own future. Daniel appreciated that. Still, another mystery remained. If his father had helped create the program, why had he disappeared? And why had Emily waited so many years before finding Daniel? Before they could continue, Emily's phone rang. She looked at the screen and immediately became serious. She stepped away from the table to answer. Daniel watched her from a distance. After a few moments, Emily returned. We need to leave, she said. Daniel's mother frowned. Why? Emily looked at both of them. Someone else knows that Daniel is here. Daniel's stomach tightened. Who? Emily didn't answer. Instead, she picked up the folder and held it close. We have to be careful. The scholarship is only one part of this story. Daniel looked at his mother. For the first time, he realized that the small act of kindness on the bus had opened a door into a past that his family had tried to leave behind. And somewhere outside the cafe, someone appeared to be watching them. Daniel didn't know who it was. He only knew that whatever happened next could finally reveal why his father disappeared, and why Emily had been searching for him all along. Daniel could not stop looking toward the cafe window. The person outside was gone, but the feeling of being watched remained. His mother quietly gathered her things while Emily held the folder tightly against her chest. We need to go somewhere private, Emily said. Where? Daniel asked. There is an old community center not far from here. Daniel immediately remembered the photograph. The same place where my father worked? Emily nodded. His mother looked worried. I don't think going there is a good idea. Emily turned toward her. I understand. But if Daniel is going to know the truth, we cannot keep giving him pieces of the story. Daniel looked at his mother. Please, Mom. I need to know. She took a slow breath. All right. They left the cafe together. During the drive, nobody said much. Daniel sat in the back seat, staring through the window. His mind was filled with questions. Why had his father disappeared? Why had Emily searched for him? Who had sent the anonymous messages? And why did someone want them to stay away from the truth? When they reached the old community center, Daniel immediately recognized it from the photograph. The building looked different now. The paint had faded and several windows were covered with boards. A large tree stood near the entrance, exactly where Daniel's father had been standing in the old photograph. Emily unlocked the door. Inside, the building was quiet and dusty, but several old photographs still hung along the walls. Daniel walked slowly past them. Then he stopped. There was his father. In the photograph, he was standing beside a group of children, smiling proudly. Daniel stared at the picture for a long time. I never saw this, he whispered. His mother came closer. I kept some things from you. Why? Because I thought I was protecting you. Daniel turned toward her. But I deserved to know who my father was. His mother's eyes filled with tears. I know. Emily placed the folder on an old wooden table. There is something else. She opened it. Inside were documents, photographs, and letters. Daniel carefully picked up one of the letters. The handwriting was unfamiliar at first. Then he saw the signature. It was his father's name. Daniel's hands became still. What does it say? Emily looked at his mother. His mother nodded. Read it. Daniel opened the letter. It was written years ago. His father had written about wanting to create a scholarship program for children whose families struggled financially. He believed education could give young people a chance to change their future. Daniel continued reading. Then he reached a sentence that made him stop. His father had written that he hoped one day his own son would understand why he had made certain difficult decisions. Daniel looked up. My father wrote this? Yes, Emily said. But why did he leave? Nobody answered immediately. Then a sound came from the hallway. Everyone turned. A door slowly moved. Daniel's mother stepped closer to him. Who is there? No answer came. Emily walked toward the hallway but stopped when her phone vibrated. She checked the screen. Her face changed. What happened? Daniel asked. Emily turned the phone toward them. Another message had arrived. It said, "You should have left the past alone." Daniel felt a chill run through him. His mother immediately said, "We're leaving." But before anyone could move, the lights went out. The room became dark. Daniel heard his mother call his name. Daniel? I'm here. Emily turned on her phone flashlight. The three of them stayed close together. After a few seconds, the lights came back. But something had changed. The folder was gone. Daniel stared at the table. The documents? They searched the room. Nothing. Someone had taken them while the lights were out. Emily looked toward the hallway. We need to find out who was here. Daniel followed her. They walked through several empty rooms until they reached a small office at the back of the building. Inside was an old desk. On the wall hung another photograph. Daniel's father was standing beside Emily. But there was another person in the photograph. Daniel recognized him. He had seen the man many times in old family pictures. It was his father's former business partner. Daniel pointed at the photograph. Who is that? Emily became silent. His mother looked away. Daniel's voice became more serious. You both know him. His mother finally answered. His name is Mr. Harris. What happened between him and Dad? Emily slowly sat down. Your father trusted him. And? They had different ideas about the foundation. Daniel waited. Emily continued. Your father wanted the scholarship money to help students. Mr. Harris wanted to turn the project into something that would benefit his own business. Daniel's eyes widened. So they argued? Yes. Then what happened? Emily looked at Daniel's mother. He left the foundation. Daniel frowned. That still doesn't explain why Dad left us. His mother finally spoke. Your father believed someone was trying to destroy the foundation. He thought staying away from us would keep us out of the situation. Daniel stared at her. You mean he left because he was afraid? He believed it was the safest choice. Daniel shook his head. But he could have told me. You were a child. The room became quiet. Then Emily noticed something beneath the old desk. A small metal box. She pulled it out. There was a lock on it. Daniel's heart began beating faster. What's inside? I don't know. His mother looked at the box carefully. I've seen this before. Daniel turned toward her. You have. She nodded slowly. Your father had one just like it. Emily searched through her bag and pulled out a small key. Daniel stared at it. You had the key? Emily looked nervous. I was supposed to give this to you when the time was right. She placed the key in Daniel's hand. For a moment, nobody moved. Daniel inserted the key. The lock clicked. He lifted the lid. Inside was a final letter, an old photograph, and a small card with a phone number written on it. Daniel picked up the letter. Before he could open it, his phone rang. This time, the caller ID displayed a name. Daniel looked at the screen. His face went pale. The caller was the same man from the photograph. Mr. Harris. Daniel looked at his mother. The phone continued ringing. Then a voice came from the other side of the building. Daniel. Everyone froze. The voice called his name again. And this time, Daniel realized they were not alone in the building. Daniel. The voice came again from the dark hallway. Daniel stood completely still. His mother moved closer to him, while Emily quickly closed the metal box and held it against her chest. Who is there? Emily called. There was no answer. Daniel's phone was still ringing in his hand. The name on the screen was Mr. Harris. Daniel looked at his mother. Should I answer? His mother shook her head. Before he could make another move, the call ended. Then a message appeared. Don't trust everyone who came here with you. Daniel's eyes moved slowly from the phone to Emily. For the first time, doubt entered his mind. Emily had helped him. She had given him the scholarship opportunity. She had brought him to this building. She had shown him the photographs. But what if she wasn't telling him everything? Daniel looked at her. What aren't you telling me? Emily's expression changed. Daniel, this isn't the time. It is exactly the time. His mother stepped between them. Daniel, calm down. No, Mom. Everyone keeps telling me to wait, to trust them, to stay calm. But someone knows where we are. Dad left without explaining anything, and now Mr. Harris is calling me. Emily took a breath. There is something I should have told you earlier. Daniel waited. Your father didn't simply disappear. Daniel's heart dropped. What do you mean? Emily looked toward the old photograph on the wall. Before he left, he discovered that money meant for the education program was being moved without proper authorization. Daniel stared at her. By Mr. Harris? We believed so. Did Dad have proof? Emily nodded. He had documents. Daniel looked at the metal box. Those documents? Yes. Daniel's mother suddenly looked alarmed. Then why didn't you tell me? Because your father asked me not to. Why? Emily hesitated. Because he was afraid that if the documents became public before the right time, innocent people could be blamed. Daniel looked down at the box. Everything was becoming more complicated. He opened it again and picked up the final letter. The paper was old. His father's handwriting was unmistakable. Daniel began reading. The letter explained that he had discovered something troubling inside the foundation. But instead of naming a single person, his father wrote about a larger problem. Several records had been changed. Some donations had disappeared. Some names had been removed. And one account had been opened using information that belonged to someone Daniel knew. Daniel stopped reading. What is it? His mother looked at him. What does the letter say? Daniel slowly raised his eyes. Mom, it has your name. His mother froze. Emily looked shocked. That can't be. Daniel handed her the letter. Emily read the page. Her expression changed immediately. Your mother was listed as one of the people connected to the missing funds. Daniel stared at his mother. Mom? His mother looked devastated. I never touched that money. I believe you, Daniel said quickly. But someone used my information, she whispered. Daniel suddenly understood why his mother had been so afraid of the past. She had not simply been protecting him from disappointment. She had been protecting him from a story that could damage their family. Emily turned another page. There is more. The final section of the letter contained a handwritten note. It said that if anything happened to him, the truth could be found through the scholarship records. Daniel looked at Emily. Is that why you gave me the scholarship? Emily nodded slowly. I needed a legitimate reason to bring you into this without frightening you. Daniel frowned. So you knew there was something hidden? Yes. But you didn't know where? No. Daniel looked at the old building around him. And now? Emily pointed toward the box. Now we may finally have the missing piece. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the hallway. Everyone turned. A man's shadow appeared beneath the doorway. Daniel stepped backward. Mr. Harris walked into the room. He was older than Daniel remembered from the photograph, but his face was unmistakable. Daniel's mother immediately moved closer to her son. Mr. Harris raised both hands. I'm not here to hurt anyone. Emily looked angry. You shouldn't have followed us. I didn't. Then how did you know we were here? Mr. Harris looked at Daniel. Because your father left instructions. Daniel's eyes widened. My father? Mr. Harris nodded. He knew this day might come. Daniel felt overwhelmed. Then tell me the truth. Mr. Harris looked at Emily. You still haven't told him everything. Emily's face became pale. Daniel turned toward her. What does he mean? Mr. Harris placed an old envelope on the desk. Your father trusted Emily, but he also suspected that someone close to the foundation was hiding information from her. Emily stared at the envelope. No. Mr. Harris continued. Your father never knew who he could trust. Daniel looked from one adult to another. Then who can I trust? Nobody answered. Mr. Harris finally looked directly at Daniel. That's what your father wanted you to discover for yourself. He pointed toward the envelope. Open it. Daniel reached for it. His mother grabbed his wrist. Wait. Daniel looked at her. She was crying. Please, she whispered. Before you open that, you need to hear something from me. Daniel waited. His mother took a deep breath. I knew your father planned to leave. Daniel's face changed. You knew. I knew he was going away. Then why did you tell me he abandoned us? Her voice broke. Because he made me promise. Daniel stepped away from her. The room suddenly felt smaller. All these years he had believed one story. Now that story was falling apart. Before anyone could say another word, the building's front door slammed shut. Everyone turned toward the sound. Mr. Harris looked concerned. That wasn't me. Emily whispered. Then who is here? Daniel looked at the envelope in his hand. He slowly opened it. Inside was a single photograph. His father was standing beside Daniel's mother, Emily, and Mr. Harris. But the date written beneath the photograph was impossible. It had been taken only 3 months ago. Daniel stared at it in disbelief. His father was supposed to have disappeared years earlier. Yet the photograph suggested something completely different. Daniel looked at his mother. "Mom?" She couldn't answer. And then, from somewhere upstairs, a man's voice called out softly. "Daniel, if you're holding that photograph, then it's time you knew the truth." Daniel's heart stopped. Because the voice sounded exactly like his father's. Daniel could hardly breathe. The voice from upstairs sounded exactly like his father's. His mother covered her mouth with one hand. Emily stood frozen beside the old desk, while Mr. Harris looked toward the staircase with an expression Daniel could not understand. Then the voice came again. "Daniel, come upstairs." Daniel took one step forward. His mother grabbed his arm. "Don't." "But Mom, that's Dad." She shook her head, tears running down her face. "You don't know that." Daniel looked at Emily. She was crying too. "Emily, what's happening?" Emily finally whispered, "Your father is alive." The words seemed to stop time. Daniel stared at her. "What?" Mr. Harris nodded slowly. "He has been alive all these years." Daniel's heart raced. "Then why did everyone tell me he was gone?" His mother closed her eyes. "Because your father believed disappearing was the only way to protect you." Daniel pulled away from her. "Protect me from what?" Before anyone could answer, footsteps came down the stairs. A man appeared. Older. His hair was gray and his face looked tired, but Daniel recognized him immediately from the photographs. It was his father. Daniel could not move. For several seconds, father and son simply stared at each other. Then the man whispered, "Daniel?" Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "Dad." His father nodded. Daniel walked toward him slowly. There was anger, confusion, sadness, and relief all at once. "You're alive." "I am." "Why did you leave?" His father looked at Daniel's mother. "I thought staying away would keep you safe." Daniel shook his head. "You missed everything." "I know. You missed my first day of school. My birthdays. Everything." His father lowered his eyes. "I know, son." Daniel wanted to be angry, but seeing his father standing in front of him made it difficult. His father explained what had happened years earlier. He had discovered that money donated to the community education program was being redirected. When he tried to investigate, he realized someone had created false records using his name and the names of people close to him. He became afraid that his family could become part of the conflict. So he disappeared and continued investigating quietly. Mr. Harris stepped forward. "I helped him uncover the truth." Daniel looked at him in surprise. "You?" Mr. Harris nodded. "I know what you were told about me, but I was never the person who stole the money." Emily added, "Your father suspected me at first too. That's why he never told me everything." Daniel looked at the 3 adults. "So who did it?" His father took the old folder from the table. The person responsible was someone nobody suspected. He opened the folder and revealed a series of financial records. The evidence showed that a former administrator of the foundation had secretly moved money into unauthorized accounts. Daniel's mother's information had been used without her knowledge. His mother covered her face. "So that's why my name was there." "Yes," Daniel's father said. "You were never responsible." Daniel finally understood why his mother had been afraid for so many years. His father had spent years collecting evidence, but he had also made a terrible mistake. He believed that protecting his family meant staying away from them. "I thought I was doing the right thing," he said. Daniel looked at him. "You were trying to protect us, but you also hurt us." His father nodded. "I know." For the first time there were no excuses, only honesty. Emily then explained the reason she had given Daniel the note on the bus. The scholarship program had finally been reopened. She had wanted Daniel to benefit from it because of his character and determination, not because of his father's name. "You gave me your seat when you had every reason to keep it," she said. "That told me enough about the kind of person you had become." Daniel smiled through his tears. "So the note really was about the scholarship?" Emily smiled. "Yes, but it became much more than that." The family finally had the truth. The false records were exposed, Daniel's mother was cleared of any wrongdoing, and the foundation was placed under new leadership with transparent financial controls. Daniel received the scholarship, but he refused to treat it as simply a reward. He decided to use the opportunity to study and eventually help other students who faced financial difficulties. Months later, the old community center reopened. The walls were repainted, the classrooms were repaired, and the scholarship program began helping dozens of young people. Daniel's father attended the opening ceremony. He stood quietly in the crowd while Daniel spoke. Daniel thanked the people who had helped him, but he also shared one simple message. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can open a door you never knew existed. Emily smiled. His mother wiped away a tear. And for the first time in years, Daniel's family stood together. But just when everyone thought the story was finally over, Daniel discovered something unexpected. The original note Emily had given him was still inside his school bag. He unfolded it again. He had read it many times, but now he noticed something he had completely missed. At the bottom of the page, beneath Emily's signature, was a tiny handwritten sentence. Daniel's father saw it and suddenly became silent. "What does that say?" Daniel asked. His father looked at Emily. Emily slowly nodded. Daniel read the words aloud. "Your kindness did not just help a stranger. It brought a family back together." Daniel looked confused. Then Emily smiled. "I knew your father was watching that day." Daniel turned toward his father. "You were there?" His father nodded. "I was sitting at the back of the bus." Daniel's eyes widened. "You saw me give her my seat?" "Yes." His father smiled. "I wanted to speak to you that day, but I was afraid." Daniel laughed softly. "So all of this started because I gave up my seat?" His father shook his head. "No, son. It started because you chose kindness when nobody was forcing you to." Daniel looked at the old note in his hands. A simple seat. A simple act of kindness. A mysterious note. And a truth that had been hidden for years. What Daniel thought was an ordinary bus ride had become the moment that changed his entire life. And perhaps that was the greatest lesson of all. Sometimes, the smallest good thing we do can reach much farther than we ever imagine. For the first time in many years, Daniel felt that his family was finally whole. There were still difficult memories, unanswered emotions, and years that could never be returned, but the truth had brought something they had all been missing for a long time: peace. Daniel's father stayed in his life from that day forward. He knew that rebuilding their relationship would not happen overnight. There were birthdays he had missed, school events he had never attended, conversations they had never shared, and countless ordinary moments that could never be recovered. But he no longer tried to run from those lost years. He started with small things. He took Daniel to school when he could. They talked after dinner. Sometimes they simply sat together without saying much. Daniel slowly learned about the father he had never truly known, while his father learned about the young man Daniel had become. One evening they sat outside the house watching the sunset. "I wish I could change the past," his father said. Daniel looked at him. "You can't." "I know. But you can be here now." His father smiled. "That means more to me than you know." Daniel had once believed that having his father return would magically fix everything. It didn't. There were still painful memories. There were still questions about why things had happened the way they did. But Daniel eventually understood something important. Forgiveness did not mean pretending the past never happened. It meant deciding that the past would not control the future. His mother also began to heal. For years, she had carried the weight of protecting Daniel while keeping a promise she had made to his father. She had worried that telling him the truth would make him angry, confused, or disappointed. Now she no longer had to carry that secret alone. The foundation also changed. The old community center became a place where young people could study, learn new skills, and receive support. The scholarship program expanded, helping students who had talent but lacked financial resources. Daniel became one of the young people who helped with the program. He remembered what his father had once believed. Education should not depend entirely on how much money a family had. Daniel wanted other students to have the opportunities he had been given. Emily remained involved too. Her pregnancy was progressing well, and a few months later she welcomed her baby into the world. She named the child after someone who had played an important role in her life. Daniel was invited to visit. When he held the baby carefully in his arms, Emily smiled. "You know, this all started on a bus." Daniel laughed. "I still can't believe one seat caused all of this." Emily shook her head. "The seat didn't cause it. Your kindness did." Daniel thought about that. He remembered the crowded bus, his tired legs, his school bag, and the pregnant woman standing near the door. At the time, he had not thought about his race, her background, or what he might receive in return. He had simply seen someone who needed help. And he had helped her. That simple decision became the beginning of a life-changing journey. One afternoon, Daniel returned to the community center and found his father looking through an old box of photographs. His father handed him one. It showed the community center many years earlier. There were children standing outside, smiling at the camera. Daniel recognized his father as a young man. "This is where everything began," his father said. Daniel looked at the photograph. "And now it's starting again." His father smiled. "Because of you." Daniel shook his head. "Because of all of us." His father nodded. The family had finally learned that secrets might sometimes seem like protection, but honesty was what allowed people to truly heal. Daniel also learned that opportunities do not always arrive in the form we expect. Sometimes an opportunity begins with a stranger. Sometimes it begins with a difficult conversation. And sometimes it begins with a simple act that nobody else notices. The scholarship changed Daniel's education, but the lesson behind it changed his character. He understood that success was not only about receiving help. It was also about becoming the person who could one day help someone else. Years later, Daniel would often tell younger students about the day he gave up his seat on a crowded bus. He never described it as a heroic moment. He always called it a small decision. "If you see someone who needs help and you can help them," he would say, "don't wait for a reward." The students would often ask him what happened after he gave the seat away. Daniel would smile. "That's when my real story began." And he would tell them that kindness can create opportunities, but more importantly, it can create connections between people who might otherwise never meet. The mystery of his father's disappearance had finally been explained. His mother's name had been cleared. The truth about the foundation had come to light. The scholarship program was helping new students, and Daniel's family had found a way to move forward together. But Daniel never forgot the mysterious note. He kept it safely in a small wooden box in his room. Not because it represented money or a scholarship. It represented the moment his life changed. Whenever he felt discouraged, he would open the box and read those few lines again. They reminded him that one good decision could matter. One kind word could matter. One small act could matter. And sometimes, when you think nobody is watching, someone is learning from the person you choose to be. Daniel had entered that bus as an ordinary teenager returning home from school. He left it carrying a note that would lead him toward his future. He had given a seat to a pregnant stranger expecting nothing in return. Instead, he received something much greater than money. He found an opportunity. He discovered the truth about his family. He reunited with his father. And most importantly, he discovered the kind of person he wanted to become. So if there is one lesson to remember from Daniel's story, it is simple. Never underestimate the power of kindness. You may never know who is watching. You may never know what someone else is going through. And you may never know where one small act of compassion can lead. Sometimes, the biggest changes in life begin with the smallest choices. For Daniel, it began with one seat on a crowded bus. And that one seat changed everything.